Hello, welcome to Theater Games on the Pop Culture Co-op. Our content is for all to enjoy, but membership to the co-op is for women and gender expansive individuals to talk about pop culture, learn new skills, grow, and take risks as a team. We'd love to hear from you in the chat, but please be kind. For those uninitiated, Theater Games is part interview, part game show where we talk and play games that your guest has never played in scene study class. Our guests are all creatives with a love of theater, and that's just about where the similarities end, because this is a space to highlight that there is no singular prescribed path to working in the arts, especially for women and non-binary folks. Our guest tonight is a performer, writer, and podcast host herself. You may have seen her on TikTok. What accent was I doing? You may have seen her on TikTok, watched her cabaret show back in the before times, or listened to her podcast of the same name, More Than Tracy Turnblad, where she goes in depth about body diversity and fat representation in theater. Please welcome to Theater Games, my Twitter friend and yours, Abby Rose Morris.
Hello.
And now you're on. Hello.
I'm on. Hi.
How are you, Abby?
I'm so good. I'm so happy to be here. It's so exciting to meet you in person.
I know. We have been friends on Twitter for years, and this is the first time we've seen each other's faces, at least digitally.
It's very exciting.
Yes, I've been a fan of your podcast and also just anything that you have to say on Twitter.
Thank you.
I hope that my I don't know, my special brand of Twitter asshole comes through here on Theater Games.
I'm sure it does.
Before we get into the unhinged aspect of the show, I like to ask our guests a few questions. The first is, how did theater first come into your life?
Oh, that's a good question. So my parents are both classical musicians, and so I would watch the shows that they played in the pit for. And that included ballet and opera as well, which I was really, really into when I was a kid. And then it just sort of slowly, I started to gravitate toward theater. Something that was really influential for me was like my mom playing in the pits of like the middle school musicals while I was in elementary school. So like that was just absolutely all that I wanted to do. I didn't even see beyond the middle school musicals until I graduated middle school, and then I was like, wow, maybe there's more theater I could still do.
That's exciting. Wait, your parents both are violinists, correct?
Yeah.
I did some research before the show.
Mhm.
You play, right?
A little bit. I'm not at their level for sure. I can play a little bit.
Do you remember what your first musical might have been? I know you were probably very
Uh,
young.
yeah, so let's see. So I know my first like okay, so it's not really a musical, but it is a musical. It was a kiddie kind of musical. So my first and second grade, we had like a team. So it was like two classes and teachers that worked together. So the whole team of first and second graders put on this play. It's called How Does Your Garden Grow? I was actually just talking with a friend who I have known since first grade who was in that play with me, and we still know all the words. And it was my first audition, and I got a solo, and I was so excited.
Ooh,
Yeah.
very fancy.
Yeah, my first like published musical that like people would probably know of was Honk.
Oh, who were you in Honk?
I was a duckling and a froglet.
Oh, I love that. I've actually never done Honk. I
Oh my
feel
god,
like
I
I
want
never
to do
had a
it again.
childhood.
I want to do it again so bad.
Doesn't the mother, not to like be boring, but doesn't the mother have a really good song in it?
She does. It's called Every Tear a Mother Cries, and it's heartbreaking.
Oh my, kids do that? That's
Oh
so
yeah.
intense.
Oh, I mean, yeah.
I'm just picturing like a really intense 12-year-old, like just trying to mine from their deepest angst
Oh,
to play a
100%.
mother.
But see, the middle school had done it like literally the year before I was in it as my first like kind of real quote unquote musical that was just like written for the theater camp or whatever. And I mean, she could probably see this. I was absolutely obsessed with the girl who played the mom.
Oh yeah,
And
we
we
all
later like
have.
did shows together, and I was like, celebrity.
Yeah,
I thought she was amazing, and we had the same voice teacher later too, so that was like super exciting for me.
oh my gosh, that means you're a celebrity.
Duh. I mean,
Oh.
no. No, 'cause I didn't play enough leads in middle school, but it's fine.
I mean, I never got a lead in middle school, that's for sure. Actually, that's a lie. I think I got a lead in, well, if you, no, I was the narrator in James and the Giant Peach.
I was in that show.
Yeah, who were you in James and the Giant
On
Peach?
Sponge, duh.
Oh, character queen.
Hmm.
Ah, all right.
I
Before we get
changed
off track,
it
just
last
making
year.
this middle school theater show.
It actually was not middle school. I was in college when I did that show.
Oh, sick. Oh,
Yeah.
that's fun. Oh,
It was pretty fun.
that's fun, especially if you have like student designers on it. I want to
It
see
was actually, it
pictures.
was not a college show. I did it while I was in college during a summer.
Oh, cool. Very cool. All right, I want to know, how has your love of theater impacted the life you live now?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So, I feel like I moved to New York because I love theater and because loving theater made me love New York and vice versa. So, I feel like that's a big thing. I know not all theater happens in New York and not all theater people love New York, but like I do so much. Um, and then just I'm sure my personality is just like heavily impacted by like niche knowledge of musicals in a good way and in a bad way, as I talk about on my podcast often, because like these sort of tropes really do get in your head, even the ones that are like not so savory, you know.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think we internalize a lot about personality from growing up doing theater.
Oh, yeah.
I know that I didn't realize I was an introvert until I got much older, because I was
No.
of the belief that you had to be an extrovert to succeed in theater, and I wanted to succeed in theater. So, of course, I was an extrovert, and I can be on stage and talk to people and audition. So, of course, I must
Yeah.
be an extrovert. But I would go home and just crash out exhausted from all of
Yes.
those things. And I realized, oh,
I identify with that. I don't think I'd call myself an introvert, but I definitely reach a point where I'm like not always on.
yeah,
However, I think doing theater like probably made me a lot more of like comfortable public speaking, a more kind of like gregarious person, I would say. Like it definitely gives you communication skills a lot of the time, so I feel like it's made me really good at customer service.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we also both work with children. And I feel like that
Oh,
it
for sure.
comes in clutch when you work with children.
Definitely. And then like working with children also, I feel like really enhances my like creativity a lot of the time.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I feel like, yeah, it all feeds in with each other. And also, when you grow up with theater around you the way you
Yeah.
and I both did, I can't speak for you, but I know that I feel kind of a calling or a duty to educate or bring storytelling to children the
I
way
love
it
that
came into my
message
life.
too. Yes.
I want to know, what is the most useful thing you have learned from training in, creating, and watching theater?
Useful to me as an actor or as a person?
Either or both.
Okay, cool. Let me think. So I don't even know that this is something I was like taught, but I mean it kind of was. But just like I remember one of my professors in college talked about riding the roller coaster and like how once you have done all the work and the preparation and the detail, you have to just like kind of just say like, can I swear on this spot?
Oh yeah, you can totally swear.
Okay, and you just say fuck it, and then you, and that's I discovered when you have fun and having fun is the point. Because like if it's not fun, why am I wasting so much blood, sweat, and tears on it?
And
Um,
money, if we're being real,
yeah,
it
yeah,
costs so much money to learn how to work in the theater, and that's why the theater is a
so much.
glaring class problem. And
Yes,
and it's like,
yes,
yeah, if you're not enjoying it,
for
like,
sure.
get out,
And then
girl.
as a person, I think it's taught me a lot of like psychology and like caused me to examine like kind of what makes people tick and like why people do the things they do and like that is so fascinating to me that it's also become a huge part of why I want to do theater and like what the work of acting is to me.
I love that. I think it's
Oh,
really.
sorry, how to say that.
Sorry, say that again.
Empathy. I had to say
Empathy.
that. Just had to add that. Duh, that's like
Absolutely. I mean, you know what? I think the world needs more of it. More and
word.
more. I
Yeah.
want to know what the most useless thing that you have picked up from theater. What's the most useless thing you still remember?
Oh, that's so interesting. That's such an interesting one. Uh, oh, I'm like the most useless. There's probably a lot. Um, I guess anybody who says this is just the way the industry is.
Yeah, that's useless. That's
That's
useless.
so, yes, that and get out of your head slash get into your body because those just put me more in my head and out of my body. We talked about this on my last podcast episode.
Yeah, or it's just an empty piece of advice. Like
Yeah,
if someone needs help with that, they need kind of a breakdown of how to get there because just saying get out of your head is not going to help the
exactly.
person who needs to get out of their head.
For sure. And like that's you can diagnose that, but then like it's not something you can do. It's you know
Yeah,
what I mean? Because you have to be taking other actions within the scene. You can't be focused on getting out of your head while you're supposed to be in a scene.
right.
And then I would also
Yeah.
say using your own life too hard has been very harmful to me, especially as a younger person. I remember I went to a summer program. Oh my God, I've never told this story publicly, but I went to a summer program in when I was 17, and the actor was trying to get me like into the scene, which was a very like sexually charged scene, and he asked me some really personal sexual questions.
In
And
front
the
of the
time I never,
class?
yeah, and I'd never even kissed anyone, and it was just like super uncomfortable, and I like stopped the scene,
And you were a
and
minor.
yeah, and I was humiliated. I thought it meant I was a terrible actor, and I would never be a good actor until I had sex. Um, and
So here at
yeah,
Theater
so
Games, we are not afraid to name names. So if you would like to, you
I
don't
wouldn't
have
like
to.
to actually.
What?
I don't want
You
to.
don't
I
want to?
don't want
That's
to
chill.
name names because I do understand where it was coming from, and I don't think that it's productive at this point to
That's
unless
fair.
I'm having a
No,
private conversation with someone who's like thinking of going to that place. Um,
yeah,
yeah, I will
cause
say
you were a
it was Circle in the
minor,
Square. I
and
won't name the teacher, but it was Circle in the Square summer theater program,
oh my god,
which I
I'm
loved.
so yeah. I've heard great things
And
about the
yet, and years later,
program.
I look back on this and I'm like, that was super inappropriate.
Oh,
But
absolutely. You were a minor. There were minors in the room.
yeah,
Uh, that's super harmful, and yeah, all I want to do is protect young girls from that
yeah,
kind of treatment and that kind of behavior, especially when they're young, because it's just so out of
yeah,
line. But even if we
yeah. And it
were,
was coming from like this place of like authenticity, but like I don't think that we should be trapped in the authenticity of experiences we've only had. When those aren't like identities, obviously. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, absolutely. Well, also, I think it goes to show, and I've believed this for years now, that like anybody working in theater with minors should have a working understanding of like what it means to be a mandated reporter, what it means to uphold ethics about grooming with
yeah,
underage
that's
people.
a
Like there's a lot of we let a lot of theater teachers get away with
yeah.
unethical behavior. I'm so sorry that you went through that, and I love that you have a platform where you can kind of speak directly to young performers going into the industry, especially in a group that is kind of underrepresented and
Yeah.
undervalued. I really appreciate that you've been able to do it so young.
Yeah, I was so young, and like at the time I was like, I can't believe I'm 17 and still a virgin. But then I'm looking back and I'm like, baby, you were 17. And
Yeah.
like no one should be virgin shamed in theater. It's like that episode of Glee. Did you ever watch this episode where Artie is like, Rachel, you have to have sex to play Maria in West
West
Side
Side
Story?
Story.
Oh God.
Oh, cursed. So cursed. The whole thing. But also, like, Ugh. I think we were joking on Twitter the other night where it's like, do you ever watch a piece of media as a out queer person and think, am I a homophobe? And you immediately were like, Ryan
Glee.
Murphy.
Glee.
Glee.
Everything Ryan Murphy's ever done. A big one is Insatiable that I'm watching right now for my podcast.
I'm
Woo!
so sorry that you have to watch that
Thank
show.
you. It's been a journey. People really got into it about that show in my Twitter comments, and like some people loved it, some people hated it. So I was like, I gotta watch this one. It's so contentious.
That's
And
Debbie Ryan in the fat suit, right?
yes, yeah, she's only in the country for like an episode or two. And it starts off horribly like problematic about all things body size. It's then it becomes a little less about that, but it gets more weirdly problematic about queer stuff, in my opinion. We're gonna talk on my podcast this week about it. I gotta.
I cannot wait. When does your next episode of the podcast come out?
Yeah, so my episodes always drop on Monday. Usually Monday morning. Sometimes it gets delayed till the afternoon if I'm having a busy week. But sometime on Monday.
Monday, that's awesome. Speaking of More Than Tracy Turnblad, before you were a podcast host, More Than Tracy Turnblad was a cabaret show. Is that correct?
Yes.
What brought you to writing the original iteration of More Than Tracy Turnblad?
Oh, that's a great question. So, I was super ashamed to talk about anything related to like my own size until college. And then I just kind of started being exposed to a little bit more like, books, tweets, etc. about it. And then junior year, I had this experience where I went to an audition for the show Do Black Patent Leather Shoes Really Reflect Up? And
Yes.
character is Becky, and the first half of the show, she's fat and she's like getting bullied in elementary school, and she sings the song "Does God Love Little Fat Girls Too?" And
I
they
know
usually,
that song.
yep, and I've known that song for ages because it was on like I think an If It Only Even Runs a Minute, which I religiously watched in high school.
Yep.
So I went into audition for Becky, and it was me and like three other girls who were all like thin and conventionally pretty. The three of them got called back for Becky, and they led me to believe that I also was, and then they had me be their reader and read like for this nun, but like they didn't tell me. So as I was like puzzling over this random side, I was hearing through the wall like these like skinny, like conventionally beautiful girls singing "Does God Love Little Fat Girls Too?" being the only fat person in the audition and probably the youngest. So, yeah, that was, then I was so angry after that audition that I literally called my friend as I was waiting for the train home, and I said, I am writing a solo show about this and performing it in the Philly Fringe. I didn't tell that story in it, but I did do the solo show in the Fringe that fall.
Yeah, that song, I used to find a lot of comfort in it when I was younger and a
Uh-huh.
little bit less media literate, if we're being really real.
Sure, yeah.
Because I also was a newmusicaltheater.com fanatic, very much an If It Only Even Runs a Minute YouTube millennial. Also, What Happened to You is literally a storyline in what we were talking about before we started streaming, The Battery's Down,
Yes.
where he thinks he's getting farther and farther and farther in callbacks, and then he's brought in as a reader
Yes.
and thinks he's in chemistry reads.
Mother's Day Off musical.
Yes!
Oh my god, iconic!
With Jonathan Groff.
Yes.
In the sequence. Oh my goodness.
Oh my God.
For those of you who were normal in the early to mid 2000s, the web series The Battery's Down by Jake Wilson and half of the University of Michigan 2007 graduating class made a musical web series.
No reason I went to school for theater.
Yeah, it basically is a commercial for the University of Michigan that didn't know it was.
Mm-hmm.
That is an absolutely unhinged experience to have so young. I feel that you're qualified to answer this question. Do you have advice you would give to plus size performers in musical theater?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm only just starting out. I only graduated college in 2019 and then a pandemic happened. But from my experience, I would say, being cast in these stereotypical roles is not inherently bad. It's your job to give them humanity. However, challenge people's expectations and don't limit yourself. Like, let other people do that if they're going to be the ones who do that. Does that make sense? Because, like, you'll never open someone's mind if you don't go in for those roles that, like, you wouldn't expect to. And that's something I struggle with so much for, like, oh, they'll never consider me for the show. Why would I show up at that audition and, like, wait in the cold? But yeah, like audition for romantic leads and whatever else you are called to, and don't be afraid to put those songs in your audition repertoire, and like don't limit yourself. The industry may limit you, but don't limit yourself.
I love that. I'm so excited to play games with you because I made up these games before you and I met, and I didn't know where this conversation would go. So our first game is called Published Theater Critic or Schoolyard Bully. And so the title is pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to read you a quote, and you are going to tell me if that quote was written by a published professional theater critic adult or a childhood schoolyard bully.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to start with a relatively easy one. Her mother is so beautiful and her daughter looks nothing like her.
Published theater critic, definitely.
Schoolyard bully.
No.
Popular girl in my show choir.
Wow.
Yep. All right. And then, by the way, she is bigger than the other women on stage.
That's definitely a published theater critic.
That's a published theater critic. Do you recognize?
Is that from the Alicia Umfris Smokey Joe's Cafe article?
It absolutely is.
Oh my god.
That absolutely is. So I have met my match in this game. I'm very excited to see how this goes. Okay, so our next quote is, "She is what I would consider a 40-footer. She is beautiful, but only from 40 feet away on stage."
You. I think my instinct is saying theater critic for all of these, but to mix it up, I'm just gonna go schoolyard bully.
It is a schoolyard bully.
Oh.
That is a schoolyard bully. Okay, next one. Pig with a mustache.
Schoolyard bully?
Schoolyard bully.
Okay.
Chunky cancer lesbian.
Schoolyard bully?
Theater critic.
No.
Swear to God, theater critic for a mainstream publication. It was either Entertainment Weekly or The Hollywood Reporter. It was about an off-Broadway play a few years back. So now we're going to go to a couple freebies. She's dressed in an unnecessarily unflattering way.
Theater critic.
Yep, that is also the Alicia Umfris remarks where they only mentioned her costuming and no one else's.
If you have nothing to say about Alicia Umfris's performance besides what she, like, her costuming, like, there's something wrong with you. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Also, the calling out of a plus size. Also, she could wear a paper bag and make it look designer.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna give you a freebie. Fatty Mikowski.
That sounds like a schoolyard bully to me.
The cleverest schoolyard bully. That was mine. Honestly, I can't even be mad. It's kind of craft. It's kind of wordsmith. And the last one is provocatively cast.
Oh, that's definitely a theater critic.
Yep, that's Ben Brantley.
Yep.
That's absolutely Ben Brantley writing about Head Over Heels, talking about Bonnie Milligan. But you know what's fun about the game Theater Critic or Schoolyard Bully is there's a ton of overlap, and we can recall all of these pretty instantly.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is why I'm so happy that you do what you do. Because there are writers who I quoted who are still working.
Yeah, for sure.
You know?
Yep.
Um, very good job on the first ever game of Critic or Schoolyard
Yeah.
Bully, the inaugural version of that game.
It was an honor.
Uh, we were talking earlier about Does God Love Little Fat Girls Too? And that is a song that I liked, but I never put in my book because when I got to a certain age, I made a rule for myself that I don't put what I call sad fat girl songs in my book.
I have the same rule, and I call them the same thing.
Shut up! Really?
Together.
I'm
Literally, I have a whole rant about it in my cabaret.
I had a whole rant about it in my column I used to write for New Musical Theater. This was meant to be. I also addendum to sad fat girl songs. Also, same thing with sad ugly girl songs because society conflates the two.
Word.
I and Does God Love Little Fat Girls Too fits in that. Plain
Yeah.
Jane Fat Ass from Bear fits
Yeah.
in that. A Quiet
Actually,
Night at
I
Home.
actually love that song, but I wouldn't sing it for an audition. Like,
Same. Oh, I wouldn't go in the room and just announce that I'm insecure and pigeonhole myself to a casting director.
right.
Absolutely
Right.
not.
Honestly, conversely, I have the same thing with like super confident fat girl songs as well.
Oh yeah.
Because I'm like I love like Jenny's Blues and like Bridget from Bring It On, but there's something about it that just seems like why would I sometimes feel like fat people are expected to perform confidence to make other people who aren't fat generally, but everybody just like feel better about how they are treated in society. And I like on principle don't want to do that. I have no issue with being confident, but I feel like yeah, it's kind of the flip side of that coin.
Absolutely. And I feel like either side of that coin, the point of that coin is that fat characters are often written very poorly, especially fat women, where it's like the entire storyline for that character, the entire personality trait is either their lack of confidence because of their weight or appearance, or they're overcoming that lack of confidence and being fierce.
Yes, which is almost always because a man likes them, which is a whole
Yeah.
other conversation.
Absolutely.
Ugh.
So because we are very well versed in the medium of the sad fat girl songs, whether it's Pretty Funny from Dogfight or A Quiet Night at Home, we're gonna make up titles or lyrics to sad fat girl songs that don't exist.
I love it.
So I have a couple categories of types of songs.
Okay.
And I can give you one. And if you also have an idea for a type of a sad fat girl song you would like for me to fabricate, we can
Okay.
switch off or whatever. But I want to know what your sad fat girl song for a teenage supporting character in a rock musical would be called, or what some lyrics would be in that song.
Let's see. Probably Why Won't He Notice Me?
Oh, yeah.
I'm right here. I'm invisible. One day he'll see.
I'm so
beyond
visible
my
and yet
disgusting
invisible.
fat exterior.
What's the big deal? I could be the big deal to someone.
Oh my god, that is so good. That is so good. Of course, like they're gonna have a bazillion puns.
Yeah. Oh, of course. You have to have a pun about size or a reference to food. Like
Oh duh.
the
I'm hungry for love.
I'm hungry for something that I can't eat when I feel that beat.
Yeah, they do such a good job with Tracy, and then there's like a few lines where they're like, fat people like food.
Yeah, it's like, girl.
By and large. No pun intended.
Yeah, or it's like even in the Good Morning Baltimore reprise, I'll eat some breakfast and change the world. It's like it's a very sweet, tender lyric.
Well, my
If
biggest
you-
one is in the jail.
Yeah.
And I combed through the Hairspray libretto when I wrote my solo show.
Of course.
There's the biggest, and to me, they're only really like, ugh, did you have to? Fat joke at Tracy's expense is in the jail when Link's like, I'm so in love with you, I can't sleep, I can't eat. And she goes, you can't eat?
Right. It's so
Yeah.
and it's also like my mother on a diet.
Yeah.
When it's
Yeah,
in
all the
reality, like
That show mostly are about Edna, though.
yeah. What's so like, And that's a way to like poke fun at someone in drag, which is a weird way to kind of poke fun at
Yes.
queerness.
Oh my god, yes. You need to come on my podcast and talk about
I'll
this.
come on your podcast
Okay, we'll talk
anytime.
after. We'll talk after we finish this recording.
Absolutely. So everybody, you better listen to more than Tracy Turnblad because I'm gonna be on it. What are titles or song lyrics for a sad fat girl song for an unconventional lead in her 20s or 30s in a pop musical theater show?
Um,
Maybe something
let's
by
see.
Basic and Ball, if you will.
Sure, sure, sure. Um, so are we talking like a sad? Oh, it's a sad fat girl.
Oh yeah, sad fat girl song.
Sad fat girl. Okay.
Sad fat girl song.
In her 20s or 30s. Here we go. Um, I think. I mean, why do I want these all to be about men? But like, I'm not the girl who gets the guy. I'm the girl who watches men walk by. I'm the girl who sits at home and eats like another French fry. I'm the girl who knows she'll never fly.
That came to you so easily and quickly. And like, yeah, just very sparse like bass notes and then like right hand arpeggiated chords on the piano
Yeah.
underneath it. I can hear that song.
Yeah.
And like, you know that it's gonna be all over the college showcase circuit. And it's gonna be like girls who are size 8.
Everyone relates to having no confidence in their appearance. And like, yeah, but then all the characters who have no confidence in their appearance are fat, and all the fat characters have no confidence in their appearance. So it sets people up to take those songs that are supposed to be sung by fat women.
Well, also, I think a big problem is that, like, I remember seeing in an interview years ago with Megan Mullally for Will and Grace, who is also a musical theater actress in her own right. And I remember
Yeah.
her mentioning when she got cast on Will and Grace that she was a size 8. And for TV, that was obese.
Yeah.
And granted, this interview was like early aughts, and the early aughts were kind to no one. But
Yeah.
there definitely, I think that belief was pervasive in like theater education communities.
100%.
Like, I remember when I was smaller, like there were times where my body dysmorphia was off the charts, and I was straight size, and I was still the largest girl in my show choir, so
Oh,
I
wow.
equated that to being too big. And I was a size 8,
Yeah.
and I was treated like I
Yes.
was the token fat girl in my program, and it was absolutely like backwards.
Yeah. Totally me too. And then I have grown up and gained some weight, and I feel like partially because people have started to come around, but partially because they're more afraid to say it, I get treated the same or sometimes better than I did when I was smaller. Cuz it's like back then it was like, "Oh, you're almost okay." Or something like that. I mean, I wasn't really that almost. I was probably like a size 10 or maybe even 12. But I feel like now I'm far enough from that, and like there's more roles, I guess, more people who have broken that mold.
Yeah.
And also people are way more afraid to say you're fat. So
Yeah. I think
they're way more afraid to say you're fat, so you're ugly. No one will say that anymore. They'll say you're not fat, you're beautiful.
yeah. Yep. Which is like you can be fat and beautiful at the same time. It's we're getting to this weird place where like commodified feminism and like zeitgeisty performative social activism is
Yeah.
creating different social mores. And
Yes.
there are some ways where it positively is impacting the industry, but there's others where like we're seeing it maybe among folks in our generation, like the
Yeah.
millennials and the Gen Zs and maybe some of the younger Gen X. But then you've still got like boomers writing for publications and talking about plus size women's costumes.
Yeah.
Their whole singing
And like
voices
those are the
right
ones who
there.
are often doing the final, there's a lot of times those are like the producers in Hollywood or on
Absolutely.
Broadway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's gonna take some more time for these shifts to keep on happening.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna flip on the other side of the Sad Fat Girl song coin because I can't believe we had the conversation we did before we played this game. The other side of the Sad Fat Girl coin, which is the peppy, confident, up fat song. So even though we call these Sad Fat Girl songs, we're gonna include a fat gay man song.
Okay.
What would be the title or lyrics to a peppy, up tempo, maybe a pastiche song for a fat gay man in his 40s or 50s?
Okay. My first thought is, um, I might not be fit, but I'm fabulous.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Or like, even like,
My
the
big fat
song would be called
fabulous. Whatever.
Flabulous, where he,
Oh yes, that's so good. That's
yeah,
so good.
like something about, like, there'd be like couch choreography, and then like somehow dancers would come out of the couch in
Yes.
speedos, but of course everyone else in the cast is thin because this is
Yeah.
Broadway.
It's so interesting because I actually have a talk on my podcast in this coming episode about how like what the representation of fat gay men is and how it's like very comparatively rare. So
Absolutely. All I could think of when I was coming up with this list was like
the prom,
the prom.
yeah,
Speaking of
and
Ryan Murphy products that make us question if we are homophobes ourselves. Uh,
yes,
but yeah, it's true. We don't see a lot of fat gay men represented, not only in media but also in our spaces, in queer spaces.
yeah,
It's really unfortunate, and it really harms, I think, queer communities and straight
sure,
people trying to
for
understand queer
sure. And like
communities.
the conversation about body standards in the gay community is
Whole
a
nother
whole
thing.
other one. But I'm sure that it all goes hand in hand
Right, and I think it also ties back into misogyny too, because even
for
though,
sure.
like, even if someone is a white cis gay man, um the way that they are treated like a joke in media is a byproduct of
Yeah.
the way women are treated like jokes.
100%. And if you watch Insatiable, you will find this. I also think that there is a thing, and I won't get too into it because I talk, well, my guest talks a lot about it on this episode, is that like a lot of the times when men are larger and in larger bodies, that is inherently construed as masculine and manly, and therefore there's no representation of gay men because gay men in the media are always super, super effeminate.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. We don't have a lot of representation of bears
Yeah,
in
hardly
media.
any.
Like, there's like a joke. It's always like a throwaway joke or a
Yeah, or
pun.
there's like a side character for one line, and the whole
Yeah.
joke
There was
there.
like
Yeah.
one bear in Looking on
Oh, I don't.
HBO.
Okay.
All right. I have one more sad fat girl song category if we're up to it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Um, what are the lyrics or the title to the Plucky Fat Girls I Want song?
Okay. Oh God, I'm gonna be the biggest sensation,
Yep.
or maybe just big sensation. Um, make a big splash. I'm gonna be the biggest sensation. I'm gonna make a big fat splash. I'm gonna show the world that um let's see. I'm gonna show the world I may be round, but I am proud. I'm gonna
Yep. Oh, that slant rhyme would absolutely happen. I'm
oh,
thinking like
yeah.
the second verse would be like, I'm gonna take a bite out of life.
Oh duh.
I'm chomping at the bit. Like, are we
Yeah.
writing a musical?
Maybe we should. I would be down. Okay, so I have to say, I've never heard of this in any context, but finding it randomly in the music library of my college. But there was this show, I don't remember what it was called, but it was like, um, all of these songs were in it, and it was like about a cast of like all plus size women, and I think it was off Broadway. If I find the
Was
title, I
it
can.
huge, or
It was not recent.
it
It
wasn't
was
the
from
Fat
like
Camp one?
90s or 80s.
Ooh.
Um, yeah, and it was like big girls need love too, big girls do it better, like all
Yeah.
those cliches, and just like every single song was like it was just all the fat girl songs, but in one show. And like half of them were like, I wish that the guys would like me because I'm fat, and half of them were like, I'm fat, but the guys do like me.
Yeah.
And those are the two types of fat women in musical theater.
Some sort of like big boned / boner pun
Yes.
situation.
Yes, and it's all so sexual, which is really weird. Like every time there's any kind of like fat woman like being desired by a man or whatever, it's always super sexual.
Yeah.
Or if the fat person is expressing desire, it's usually super sexual. That has always bothered me.
Yeah.
Hairspray is actually kind of the exception.
Yeah, I think we know that Edna and her husband, they fuck.
They fuck.
They fuck.
Yeah, Edna, I'm talking about Tracy, I guess, specifically when I'm saying she's the only fat ingenue, and almost all other fat women who are like, hey, I want to be loved, and it's not sad and pathetic, and like I believe I deserve love. They're like, I can fuck so well. Like,
yeah, I mean, you know what's funny is like in my headcanon of Hairspray, because I've obviously, who among us hasn't gone in for Tracy Turnblad?
Yeah.
I know I have, and I've definitely had people like come up to me at my workplace at the piano bar where I work, and like come up and be like, oh my god, do you know what role you'd be great at? Tracy Turnblad in Hairspray.
Oh, I've never heard of it.
And then like after another drink come back to me and be like, I just really wanted to tell you that I'm really sorry that I said that. And I'm like, why are you sorry? And they're like, I just didn't want to offend you. And I was like, no, people tell me I should be Tracy Turnblad all the time. Don't you worry. But really, it was one of those things where it's like, you're not fat, you're beautiful. But I always, like, if I ever I've never gotten to play Tracy. But if I ever did, I think Tracy doesn't know what to do with it yet. But I think Tracy is super H-word.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like, super H-word.
I've got to break out so I can get my hands on you. Yeah, she definitely is. But I just feel that it's less abrasive than it is a lot of the time in how that owner portrays.
Yeah, it's not as overt, and it's up to the actor to decide their comfort level.
For sure. I mean, I agree that she like definitely wants it.
Oh, but yeah. She wants to peg him. She doesn't even know what that is yet.
That's a game you should play with another guest, is like couples and musicals, like straight couples and musicals who should peg or who want to.
Oh yeah, or like how do they have sex? That's a good one. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Speaking of another, this is gonna be our last game of the night. Really quickly, if you've ever played anything like Premise Lawyer in improv, where someone makes a statement and you have to defend it. Except all of these, you know, you and I think are on the same page, where pretty much any role in the musical theater canon you can cast with a fat actress.
Yeah.
It's a matter of really knowing the text and having strong direction and dramaturgy, and really like knowing what show you're wanting to put on. But there's really no limit if you're really thoughtful.
Yeah, agreed.
So I'm gonna give you some musical theater roles, and I want you to tell me why we should cast a fat actress to play them. And if you think of any roles, you can absolutely throw it back at me as well.
Awesome.
My first one is Miss Honey and Matilda.
That is gorgeous. Let's see. If you're going by the traditional fat girl tropes, Miss Honey is a great example because she's actually very timid. She seems like someone who's been beaten down by life. She's getting a lot of shit, basically, like, and yet she manages to be someone who has faith. So I think that, and who's nurturing and kind. So like in that way, I don't see any reason why she wouldn't be an obvious choice for a fat person. And that's like just going off the cliches. And then you just have the fact that like teachers are fat all the time. People, like, there's nothing in the plot about her size. I mean, she's described in the book, I think, as like beautiful. And you think fat people can't be beautiful?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think as I was putting this game together, something that kept coming up in my mind is like, the second you say that a character fits the norms of society,
Yeah.
Most women are a size 12 to 16.
Yep.
So if we actually wanted to go by that metric,
Yeah. For
you
sure.
could cast a fat woman in any role.
For sure.
Do you have a role for me to defend?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna pick one. Okay. Yours is the witch from Into the Woods. I say that because I want to play it.
Oh, okay. So the witch from Into the Woods, because Into the Woods has so many of these questions about like I was raised to be charming, not sincere.
Yeah.
Nice is different than good. I think we could also get at fat is different than ugly with the
Yes.
witch. And I think you could even take each character and think about um different delineations that we conflate as a culture, because Into the Woods itself is about psychology.
Yes.
So also like it's just so easy and such a fun idea to put like a hot fat woman in like a slinky gorgeous like well constructed dress with a slit that's long underneath all of the witch stuff, so that when
Yeah.
the transformation happens the silhouette completely changes and like is just va va voom. And I
Yeah.
think having an audience see a fat person as beautiful is a really strong message,
Yes.
and like magically
Also a way
beautiful.
to ease into it because, like, you see a fat person as witch, you're like, okay, I guess, if you're really stuck
Yeah.
in those tropes. Yeah.
And
And also,
also,
I think
yeah.
it does play into like the confidence we expect of fat women. Sorry, this is yours.
Yes. No, you're exactly right though.
Yeah,
Like that we you see her getting mad that she's
power.
ugly.
But in Into the Woods, beauty and power are antithetical.
Yes. Yeah, and also I think what's great about the witches in her contradictions is that like she becomes beautiful of face, but you actually see her vile and black of heart on
Yes.
its biggest display when she gets to be beautiful again. And also we get to challenge beautiful is different than happy by the
Yes.
end of the witch's story. That's a
Yeah.
really good one. Um okay, how much time do we have? We have time for a couple more. I know
Okay.
this is a role that you want because I did research on you before. Tell me why we should cast a fat actress to play Mama Rose.
Oh my God, hell yes. One of my guests coming up also talks about this. I am of the opinion that Mama Rose and Louise, Gypsy Rose Lee, both should be played by fat actors. Just period, should. Because it completely supports the story, the norms of the time in vaudeville. Like, it's completely believable that a young, like, girl who's like fatter would be shut out of the vaudeville circuit, wouldn't be able to do what Baby June does, and then would end up finding her niche as a stripper. And you see like a lot, I just know a lot of plus size people in burlesque, and a lot of the places where I see like fat bodies in media are as strippers and prostitutes. We can talk about why that is, but it completely fits in what we think of as a stripper. Plus you have her like confidence arc, and then with Mama Rose you have her in the same way, like, why couldn't it be me, why couldn't it be me? And then the reason that she questions, oh God, like, I do have it, it should have been me at the very end in Rose's turn, is because she sees her daughter succeeding in spite of her size.
Yeah, and she sees herself in her daughter. I think that's
Yes.
brilliant.
Yes.
I want you to play that, but I also kind of want you to direct that production.
Oh, I would love to do either or both.
It's
I
amazing.
at this time, but I'll be Mama Rose in 10 years,
Yeah,
20.
you've got time. You've
Yeah.
got time. Do you have another role for me to justify?
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna give you an ingenue.
Okay.
Let's do. I want you to do Nellie Forbush.
Ooh.
This is a
Um,
challenge, I think.
I think with Nellie Forbush, I think we often think of the ingenue archetype, especially in Golden Age. We think of a princess type because that is what has been presented to us,
Right.
but it's presented to us in conjunction with the idea that the woman is average. I'm as corny as Kansas in August. You know,
Yes.
I am all of these tropes of an all American white lady.
Yeah.
Um, if that is true, then let's have her look more like actually numerically average normal.
Yes.
And let's challenge the viewer in what they see as normal, because so many musicals, especially older musicals, are just like, they cast this societally beautiful actress because they think, oh, well, that's someone that a dude would fall in love with. And it's like, dudes fall in love with fat women all the time. Fat women are beautiful.
Right. And even if they weren't, like, they could still get fallen in love with. I mean,
Yeah. Or, like,
yeah.
to be more crass, it's like, fat women get laid.
Yeah.
Like, because a lot of what drives musicals, I think, isn't even real love. A lot of it is lust.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. South Pacific is a great example.
Yeah. Absolutely. That was a hard one. So I'm gonna give you my hardest one.
Uh-oh, okay.
And this will be our last one. Elle Woods.
This is a good one. Okay, that's a good one because I completely get why she's always cast with a thin person. So basically, I think the whole argument here is just why not? Like, fat people can be sexy, fat people can be a little bit ditzy, fat people can be brilliant. And we're so rarely shown as brilliant. Also, Elle Woods, by the way, is like very sexual. And I think fat people are often underestimated. And so you have that as well. And I just think that like femininity is sometimes denied to women who are larger, and youth is sometimes denied to them. But the truth is, there are tons of young, feminine, fat women. All around the world, and there are tons of fat people in sororities, and like, just there's no reason. No, there's nothing about it in the script. Also, by the way.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Like, I think she just needs to be rich and high femme.
Yeah, for sure. And then like you could even make an argument that like, oh, I want a Jackie, not a Marilyn. Is like Jackie is like this perfect thin person. I'd actually also be really interested in a fat Vivian, but
Yeah.
maybe that's how it would read to an audience who's used to seeing those tropes. That's fine.
That's
It's
a
still not,
really
it's not normal.
I hadn't thought of that interpretation of that lyric. Part of me was just like, oh, she wanted to go into fashion merchandising and go into plus size fashion. Would be like what plus size Elle Woods would be doing in my brain.
Yeah, I love that.
I love that. I have loved talking to you. We are running out of time, but please tell the good people of Twitch where they can find you.
Amazing. You can find me at Abby Rose Morris on Instagram and TikTok, Abby Rose Morris _ on Twitter. Sadly, some other bitch stole the Abby Rose Morris handle there.
I mean, we love you, other Abby. We love you.
Just kidding. We love you. And then my podcast is More Than Tracy Turnblad. You can find it at More Than Tracy T on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, and Facebook. And you can find the podcast itself anywhere you listen to podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever obscure podcast app you want to listen on. It's probably there too.
And your next episode goes up on Monday. Is that correct?
Yes. Episodes always come out on Mondays. But feel free to enjoy the backlog and the back catalog of episodes that are up already.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for playing theater games. I am going to go do a little sign off, but we can say goodbye. This will be the last time the audience at home will see your beautiful face.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for watching. Much love. Come listen to my pod sometime, especially if and when Maddie's on it.
Thank you so much to Abby, and thank you for joining us on Theater Games on the Pop Culture Co-op. If you love our content, please be sure you are following us on our social handles at Pop Culture Co-op. Follow us here on Twitch and subscribe. You can also help us financially by becoming a subscriber, buying and using bits, and by sending money to our PayPal at Pop Co-op. Don't miss tonight's episode of Trollopsism, where we're doing I'm not, but our hosts are doing a deep dive on the Hooker with a Heart of Gold story of all Hooker with a Heart of Gold stories, Pretty Woman. Have a good rest of your night, everybody.